Paige Bono. This is Jan Bindis-Tenney. We're both MFA candidates in the nonfiction creative writing program. Along with Paco Cantu, another candidate, and Allison Deming, we spent 2 weeks in Grand Manan this summer launching the Field Studies and Writing program. This is the first in a 5-year program funded by the Haury. The overarching goal of the program is to illuminate and, I'm so sorry, I'm nervous too. To emphasize and illuminate the invaluable role that the arts, specifically personal narrative, plays in responding to issues of social and environmental justice. So this program is 2-tiered as it stands now. The first tier supports individual graduate students like Jan, Paco, and myself in pursuing our own research and writing interests on the island. The second tier, which Jan will talk more about later, is a mentorship program with high school students on the island. Paco, who couldn't be here but maybe will show up later if you have questions for him, focused largely on issues of the border. Paco spent 4 years as a Border Patrol agent on the Mexican-American border and took his interests to Grand Manan. There he focused on the gray, what's known as the gray zone. It's a disputed maritime border between the US and Canada where lax fishing regulations lead to tensions and occasional flare-ups. We had the opportunity to go out with Captain Lawrence Cook on their lobster fishing boat for 14 hours. And one of the things that they face is when they're hauling up their traps, other people's traps have often been laid down and they don't know whose those are. Sometimes they're forced to cut the traps. Lawrence did not cut the trap, but creates this rise in tensions. Paco Machaya Seal Island is also in the gray zone. This island is claimed by both the US and Canada. Paco is also interested in natural borders. Grand Manan is part of an archipelago in the Bay of Fundy. The Bay of Fundy experiences the greatest tidal variance in the world. And so during ebb tides, there are walking passages between some of the islands, whereas during flood tides, they're navigable only by boat. So he's exploring, these natural borders. My own research focused on sort of answering the question about what the effects of structures of control are on the relationship between humans and the environment. So I was interested in both figurative structures of control, like economies of scale, the corporatization of the fishing industry, and literal structures of control, like fishing weirs and salmon cages. That last picture is a fishing weir. This is the traditional fishery of the island. Islanders' identities are linked firmly to the herring fishery, not just economically, but socially. We had the opportunity to go out with the Brown family, generously offered us this chance to witness one of the weirs being seined. If you need to know how that happens, you can talk to me because now I know how to explain it. But this is a rare opportunity now because unfortunately the herring are in decline in response to warming waters and overfishing. So that's a herring. As the herring industry declines, many of the individual fishers invested in salmon cages and salmon farming. They were quickly replaced by multinational corporations like Cook's Aquaculture. Jan will talk more about that. I was really interested in the way that people working on these salmon cages related to their work and their catch, in contrast to the way those working in the weirs related to their catch and their work.
So, one of the many reasons that Grand Manan is so unique is because traditionally fishing for herring, lobster, groundfish, picking edible seaweed, clams, periwinkles have always been individual or collective endeavors, not industries dominated by corporations who figure things out and then pay people to punch a clock. Can you change it? I noted how Grand Mananers told me over and over how independent, self-sufficient, and inventive they all were. People seem dedicated to an identity of entrepreneurship, that they're an island of innovators, they're DIY to the core. I met a 75-year-old fisherman named Buddy who lost use of his legs at age 12 from polio, but still went out to fish lobster in one of these boats called a dory, one trap at a time. It occurs to me that unlike many natural resource-rich places, Grand Manan keeps the profit from the fishing industry, recirculating back into the island's microeconomy when fishermen build houses, when they go to the grocery store, and donate to their local church. This is an edible seaweed called dulse that people pick during 2 low tides a day. People also wrinkle, which is what they call picking periwinkles, and dig for clams. One guy I met named Gordy, who claimed to be the fastest climber on Grand Manan, told me, "The only boss I have is the tide. She's the only boss I got. When she tells me to go home, I go home." Like most places, corporations, you can switch it, are taking over areas of the industry. As Paige discussed, Cook Aquaculture foreclosed the farms and bankrupted individually owned aquaculture sites. People may no longer see themselves as independent, self-sufficient, and innovative when the only option to pay the bills becomes wage work at the oil refinery or on the salmon cages. During our 2 week stay on the island, we worked closely with 6 high school students from the Grand Manan High School. Here in this photo, we're on a trip to Kent Island, a small biological research station and bird sanctuary owned by Bowdoin College in the Grand Manan archipelago. That's largely inaccessible to Grand Manan residents. There was a reciprocal exchange in mentorship, information, and deep connections for both the students and us. They became important ambassadors and tour guides. They opened doors, introduced us to their grandmothers, took us to places, and generally took pride in showing us around. I think we provided a window off the island for the kids, shared new viewpoints and experiences with them. Liam and Mackenzie even brought us to jig for squid off the wharf at half tide. Paco caught 2 squid, much to mine and Paige's dismay. The students each worked on a creative project. Lauren interviewed a whale researcher and wrote a nonfiction fairy tale on the theme of dystopia. We made a short video of Michael Brown digging for clams. Liam made a video from his 4-wheeler of his favorite place called Eel Lake. Madison wrote about Dark Harbor from the perspective of her grandmother, and Harley wrote about the iconic Swallowtail Lighthouse. Our plan is to create a map-based website that will accrue the creative writing of Grand Manan High School students over the next 5 years. We did run into some major logistical obstacles that these kids all work full-time, some of them on lobster boats, some of them on salmon cages, some of them in the tourist industry, and it was nearly impossible to get them all together at one time. So what we had envisioned as more of a class and fieldwork creative arts camp became much more ad hoc relationship building and mentorship. We're at work to figure out a better model for next year. We believe that the creative projects could have been stronger with more structure. We'd love to hear from all of you if you have experience running a summer program with high school students, so please come find us. Thank you again to the Agnes Nelms Haury program. This was a life-changing experience for all of us.